Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Esports Racing League's 6th season, the Summer Tour, presented by Spec Racer Sports, Alliance Autosport, and Grassroots Motorsports Magazine here on Apex Racing TV. Over the course of our 9-week regular season and then the winner-take-all runoffs, we'll bring you some of the best racing in 3 different classes, well known to club racers here in the United States: Spec Miata, Spec Racer Ford, and the Formula 4 Formula Cars. I'm Greg Ginsberg, along with Tim Cox in the commentary booth and Dennis Branch in the virtual production trailer, and tonight it's week number 6, where we find ourselves in Lexington, Ohio, and the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Opened in 1962, Mid-Ohio, like many of the tracks of its era, was built right into the land, and according to its designer, Les Grieveling, it was designed with one singular goal, that goal to be difficult. And from the keyhole to madness, from Thunder Valley to the carousel, it's over 2 miles of camber and elevation changes which constantly challenge the driver. And after watching tonight's races, I think you'll agree that Mr. Grieveling's goal was most likely accomplished. Tonight we'll be running the 2.25 mile 13-turn pro course, the one without the chicane that's been in use since 1990. And as we do each week, tonight we'll feature 2 20-minute sprint races. First up will be our Formula 4 drivers. You can see them on track here right now. And this will be their 4th race of the season. And then we'll welcome back our Spec Miata drivers for their 4th outing as well. And although they didn't make the trip to Mid-Ohio, rest assured our Spec Racer Ford drivers, they'll be back with us next week. And so, Tim, first off, good evening and welcome to the Buckeye State.
Thank you very much, Greg. Well, what can we say? Mid-Ohio, the quintessential classic road course, really, isn't it? Of course, home to IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR Xfinity, as well as a whole host of the SCCA and National Autosports Association races. FIA Grade 2 track, I mean, it's just got that national circuit with a bit of a hint of international vibe about it as well. Lots of rolling corners, the roller coaster section almost from turns 4, pretty much seeing you right through to the final turn, turn 13. It's a real challenging circuit, but you can bet your bond dollar there's going to be a lot of overtaking into turn 4. You've got that long straight, a bit of a kink through turn 3 in the middle of it as well, out of turn 2. And that's where we're going to see all the action and the drama tonight, of which we've seen this season. And there's always been plenty of, and I don't doubt that tonight isn't going to be any different whatsoever.
No, Tim, definitely not. And then this track, like I said, lots, as you mentioned, lots of elevation change, lots of twists. Your hands are constantly moving here. And although it is a fairly tight circuit, and certainly as we're seeing right now, where Wayne Buttermore perhaps having some issues over at the turn 5, otherwise known as Madness, as I think we'll probably see a lot of our drivers be challenged by here this evening. You know, it's a course that still does present some very good passing opportunities, as you mentioned. Turn 4, the quintessential pass, heavy braking passing opportunity at the end of a very long straightaway, but also the keyhole coming up as you come out of that fairly quick, unassumingly quick turn 1, making the run down towards that right-hander that falls off camber. The elevation drops, but it's still a very hard braking corner to go in as well, and so a lot of opportunities there. And if you can't get the pass done there, you best get a great exit, because otherwise you might be passed when you get down to turn 4. So let's do this, Tim, as we are now just a little bit over halfway through our 15-minute open qualifying session here. And currently our provisional pole sitter is Morgan Burkhart. He has all of a 28,000th of a second advantage right now over Caleb Patry, and you'll see there Tyler Campbell not all that far behind. I think Tyler Campbell actually running the same livery from when he ran the Skip Barber Formula iRacing series earlier this year, and Caleb Patry in that series as well. But let's take a quick look back to last week, where we had our Formula 4 racers battle it out at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, where it was a very, very tight, close finish. Morgan Burkhart taking the win, but only a couple hundredths of a second back to Nagisa Yoshikawa, and I think the margin was somewhere along the lines of a 2,000th of a second, and then from Yoshikawa back to John Vogel, only 2/10ths of a second. So very, very close up at the front. And Vogel had made up a ton of ground, closing up on Yoshikawa, making up 3 seconds in the last 5 minutes of that 20-minute race. So very, very close there at the front. And if we take a look at the point standings right now, as Morgan Burkhart, I believe, has run the table so far this season. He has 76 points. Jordy Fike, who finished 7th at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, is currently sitting second in the points, actually made up 2 positions in the championship. He's got 47 points. Only 3 points back from him is John Vogel. Vogel was our RE2 Formula Car champion last season. And then we've got Caleb Patry, 2 points back from there. Jamison Huffman, who I don't believe is on track or has turned a lap so far this session. Jamison Huffman, probably Justin Huffman, that's the father, Justin, currently sitting 5th in the championship 10.
Incredibly close, isn't it, Greg? And
yes.
Wow, it's only going to get tighter, and the race is only going to make more fierce and ferocious as we come to the climax of the season. Drivers who start pushing and getting a bit adventurous with moves that earlier in the season they probably wouldn't have dared dreamed of, and that's just going to make them racing all the more spicy and great for us up in the commentary booth and the neutrals at home watching along, because it's going to be an absolute barnstormer of a finish, isn't it?
It is, and you see they're going off and having a lap tossed out is Sandy Cetullo, driver of the red and white number 107 machine. Sandy Cetullo, a Spec Racer Ford racer in real life, came in 3rd at the SCCA's National Championship runoffs at Indianapolis Motor Speedway last October. And having a little bit of an issue there over by turn 5, and he gets that car back underway, but he's gonna have to get the dirt off the tires and get that car back up to speed if he's looking to move up through the order. He is currently qualified 4th, and Cetullo, a bit of a racing history. Tim, his father, Sandy Cetullo II, not only having competed back in the early 80s in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series and also the ARCA Series, was also a competitor at the 24 Hours of Daytona and the Cannonball Run back in the early 70s. That was Sandy Cetullo the second, Sandy Cetullo the third behind the wheel tonight, and he's been making his name for the last couple of years in club racing. He's out. He's originally out of Ohio, from southern Florida now.
It's great how this series brings so many real-life races across into the sim world, and you never know, one day we might see a few that transcend in the opposite direction. You're starting to see it more and more as the sim world's starting to open up opportunities for drivers to go racing real life, or even just inspire them. I know, the real life world of racing isn't the cheapest, and it has opened up a few opportunities to some of the drivers out there. And I think we're going to see as time progresses, that more and more heading in the opposite direction.
Yeah, in a matter of fact, I think iRacing had just posted up a video earlier today of one of its NASCAR champions getting a ride in a real Cup car a couple of weeks ago, and how it was at a smaller track, certainly not a super speedway, but how much he was able to apply from his iRacing experience to the real world. And we've seen a number of racers start to move in that direction. I guess probably the one that most iRacers will probably know is someone along the lines of, certainly a Jimmy Broadbent, or a number of other folks as well. And Nissan, a number of years ago, held competitions to try and move some of their virtual racers, and I guess this was in combination with Sony to get some of their racers real world experience. Brian Heidkotter out of the United States here, another prominent racer now that got his start in the virtual world. And it was interesting in watching this video earlier today. He says, I have so much that I could apply, and he was only about I think 3 or 4 tenths of a second per lap off of the car owner who had been running this car all season long. But he said that there are so many inputs now that I can get in the car that I'm just not used to. that he had to really acclimate himself to real world driving. Whereas, for example, I get behind the wheel of the virtual race car, and I find all of those inputs, primarily through the seat of my pants, disappear, and it's much more difficult for me. So it's interesting to see it go in the other direction. Tim, here, as it looks like we are now just beyond the 15-minute mark. So we've got a few drivers on their last flying laps, including Caleb Patry. Actually, Patry, I believe, is in the pits already. We're on board right now with Theo Moriescu, and I think Theo has at least one fan sitting in the chat right now and watching on YouTube. Hi, Miles. Here's your guy right now, seeing if he can move up. Seeing if he can move up now from 7th position on track. And we've also been graced by Jonathan Grabowski, who works for Apex Racing TV, who says, "Stubby forever." For those of you that join Larry McLeod and I on the different Rick Motek series on Monday nights, you'll know. But we're still waiting here. It looks like Sandy, and it looks like now as Moriescu goes off, I believe that was coming out of turn 11. It looks like his attempt to move up in the order is now done, and I believe the only drivers left on course are those. Actually, I think Joaquin Effinger is just kind of tooling around out there, Tim.
Just while we were talking, Morgan Burkhart took it on pole. A cracking lap from him, 121.68, 4 hundredths of a second quicker than Caleb Patry. As always, Greg, fine margins being dealt with here in the Ray Esports League. We don't do seconds, we don't even do tenths, we do hundredths of a second, even
thousandths.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same, even thousandths of a second quite often.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think we're going to talk about it after we come back from the break. I mean, we saw last week at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta where a driver crossed the line sideways to finish his race and was only a couple thousandths off with the car right in front of him. But let's look at that starting grid tonight, Tim. Here, I'll grab it for our first race this evening. As you mentioned, Morgan Burkhart from All Sports Racing, and I guess now Team Hardpoint Racing, on the pole with a pole setting time of 121.676, 48 thousandths of a second up on his teammate Caleb Patry, driving the number 198 machine. John Vogel driving the Carrier air conditioning number 4. He will start on the inside of row number 2 with Sandy Cetullo in that 107 car, starting right next to him in 4th. Tyler Campbell from All Sports Racing, he will start on the inside of row number 3 in 5th with Kyle Vallejos starting in 6th. Then we've got Theo Moriescu in the number 31 machine. He'll start right next to Beans Forster in the number 231 car. And then we've got Deacon Greenfield, driver of the number 36 machine. I saw Deacon run a very good race in real life at Summit Point Raceway this weekend. Glad he can join us here. Jordy Fike will start next to him in 10th. Then we've got Andrew Benna driving the number 71 machine, coming off a very good race at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, where he finished in 4th position. I'm sure he's going to be looking to move up through the field here tonight. Wayne Buttermore is starting in 12th. Then we've got Joaquin Effinger and Greg Mack making up row number 7, with Murphy Nichols and Charles Vaccaro scheduled to start 15th and 16th. Neither have made their way to the grid yet. We'll see if they do before this pace lap starts. I think we're also waiting on Theo Moriescu. He has not gridded up. You can see that big gaping hole right next to the 37 car. Well, not gaping any longer. The purple and yellow number 31 has now made the grid.
Just confirm for you, Greg. Murphy Nichols and Charlie Vaccaro will be starting from the pits. Now, it could be an inspired move. It can get a bit spicy on the opening lap, especially with these rolling starts as well that we have. Obviously, in American-based series, only in the UK, we base the standing starts in the F4 cars, but let's definitely bring a bit of element of danger and spice having the rolling starts. And this, as you mentioned earlier, Greg, the tight nature of this circuit is going to make it all the more challenging for our drivers.
That's right, and with the pace car in, a very short pace lap here at Mid-Ohio, green flag is in the air. Not a lot of time for drivers to get heat in the tires or in the brakes as they come underneath the Cooper Tire Bridge and go into turn 1 for the very first time. Many of these drivers still side by side, and it looks like most of the field and the entire field has made it through the opening corner safely. Morgan Burkhart jumping to a very early start, shooting down the inside Caleb Patry in that red and black number 198 machine, and then side by side, door to door, John Vogel and Sandy Cetullo. Cetullo is going to slot in behind John Vogel, and right behind them we've got Moriescu and Forster now battling it out. Moriescu sitting on the inside there with Campbell now coming up the outside. Moriescu is going to have to take a real tight entry into turn number 4 as they come up the hill over the top of Madness, and we have a car off coming out of turn 4. That is Wayne Buttermore. He's going to drop to the tail end of the field now, as it looks like Nichols and Vaccaro maybe did not make the start, Tim. But our leader, Morgan Burkhart, leading the field now over the top of turn 11 and into Thunder Valley.
It's fascinating the way it's chopping and changing in the midfield, though, Greg. It's so tightly compact, and as soon as you get pushed offline, then it's so hard to get back on. It just opens up the door for people behind you, as we're seeing right now. Moriescu just dropping a couple of places there.
That's right. So Moriescu now sitting in 6th position. Actually, Tyler Campbell, odd man out, as he now falls back to 7th, having lost 2 positions. We're on board right now with Tyler as he is trying to catch the draft, and you can see Moriescu now moving to driver's left, trying to take a wide set, but opening the door for Campbell, and there's contact between Tyler Campbell and Theo Moriescu going into the keyhole. You saw it right there, right from behind the halo, of Taylor Campbell's car, and he is now going to drop all the way down to 13th position. Moriescu, oddly, does not seem to lose a spot, and let's take a look at the replay, Tim.
Well, they didn't quite make it through the keyhole. As you see, just locked him, understeered, under braking, but Moriescu did leave that big gap. He left himself vulnerable there to the lunge, and Campbell went for the gap, but just couldn't get the car slowed down in time, and that's what caused the contact there. Just invoked the understeer and locking the front brakes, and well, that's how it ended in disaster for the pair of them.
Yeah, you got it right there. You know, Moriescu had left the door open and left so much room for Campbell that if he had been able to get the front end of the car to bite a little bit, probably would have ended up very, very differently there. As we jump on board right now with Andrew Benna in that number 71 machine, the orange and blue machine. He has now Deacon Greenfield in the 36 car, the green and blue 36 right behind him. As Benna goes wide, goes off, coming out of turn number 1, does the 360 there. Good recovery for Benna, but he's still going to lose a number of positions as Joaquin Effinger in the yellow number 700 gets by him as well. So yeah, that's what I get for talking about his 4th place finish last week, Tim.
And just completely styling it out there with the 360, pointing in the right direction, carried on like nothing had happened, just brushing it off as just seeing a move there. Brilliant, right around the outside. You're able to do that into turn 4, something that sets you up nicely on the inside into 5. And Tyler Campbell and Deacon Greenfield making light work with Greg Mack there.
As we come down into the S's here, and this quick little rise up over turn 9, you can see there where the cars get very loose as the rear end lifts up. All the weight goes forward as they come down the hill, and they do manage, both Greenfield and Campbell manage to get the cars down through Thunder Valley. Now, I think, Tim, the question is going to be is how long can Greenfield hold off Tyler Campbell there?
Spin in the background.
Oh,
it's
yes.
The 35.
And yes, indeed, that was Kyle Vallejos going around, coming out of turn 1, gets the car back underway. And we see this quite often with these cars, of course, you know, very stiff suspensions, and there is always the tendency and the desire, Tim, to get that car as close to the apex as you can. And there is a very, very small, but how do I put this? Sharp curbing between the track surface and the pit out area. And you know, for a touring car, for a Miata, you know, you can get the inside rear wheel up on that curbing without much of a consequence. But here in the Formula 4 cars, it definitely has the tendency to send the car around.
Also, Greg, these cars suffer with lift-off oversteer, and that's really tricky around Mid-Ohio, where you've got so many off-camera corners, blind entries and apexes. It's a real challenge, but also you can actually use that to your advantage to get the car turned in a little bit more, especially if you think you're going to be missing that apex. But these curbs, on, as you mentioned, they look nice and smooth from the outside cameras, but when you see them up close in person in real life, the serrations in them are really deep and steep, and that just causes, obviously, the outside wheel to lift up off the ground, and then you're going to lose traction, and it invokes the spin, especially when they're heavily loaded up the cars on the right-hand side as they come round 1 at nearly full chat.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, and I think we had a great view of it in that shot there as we were watching the cars come at us underneath the bridge coming through turn 1, is that curbing separating the track surface from the pit lane. It essentially starts about, I'd say, about 10 feet before the apex of the corner, and then of course ends about 15 feet after the apex. And so you have this tendency, especially if you turn in a little bit early, to have a bit of confidence there, because all there is yellow paint, and then all of a sudden the curbing appears, as we now have going around. That is Deacon Greenfield. I asked a lap or so ago how long he was going to be able to hold off Tyler Campbell. Well, he had already let Campbell by, but in going around there at the top of Madness, and you know, that liftoff oversteer can be a problem there as you hit the crest of the hill, and then you start to very quickly come back down. Kyle Vallejos and Greg Mack, as well as Andrew Benna, all get by the number 36 machine.
Ooh, wow, both the two there of Mack and Benna, both suffering there, but Whereas Mac was able to collect it, Benner wasn't, and I think that was just where he saw Mac just starting to lose it, as that's Cetullo.
That is Cetullo going off on the outside of the keyhole and impacts the tire wall there. Let's take a look and see what happens as he comes out of turn 1, Tim, and makes that run down. Again, the keyhole, once you get into it, it is downhill, it is off camber, and it looks like he maybe just did not get the braking done in time, Tim. Certainly couldn't get the nose rotated.
That clatter with the wall is going to be suspension damage, possibly even steering column damage. Cetullo is back up and running again. Or actually, no, apologies. Still parked down at the keyhole. Looks like that could well be the end of Cetullo's race, potentially.
All right, as we watch now, as we've got our leaders, Burkhart and Caleb Patry. We haven't spent much time with the top two here, but Patry, as we had watched him come through, Tim, come through turn 11 out of Thunder Valley and make that run down to the carousel, the rear end really stepping out, and now the rear end stepping out on Morgan Burkhart coming out of the final corner, coming out of turn 13 onto the front straight. He's going to recover, but that is now going to escalate. Caleb Patry up to the lead. Let's take a look at the replay here.
So as they come round one, just got a little bit of grass on the entrance. That's not too bad, but there you go. Smack those curb on the inside. Yep. And it was losing control and just unsettled the car, caught the grass on the outside. And that's what turned him in and nearly purchased him a one-way ticket to the barrier. Well held, though, from Morgan Burkhart to keep it out of the wall. But he's lost 9.5 seconds and first place from Patry. That's a big, big deficit. And Beans Forster isn't far behind. That might invoke the fire within him. It's just seeing Jordy fight. He's already lost one place. Moriescu's made it past on the previous lap and then loses another place now to Campbell. And Valeos not far behind either. And this could potentially be, another spinner.
And that is the second time that Moriescu has been involved here with an incident, as he had gone through earlier with that lap 1 contact with Tyler Campbell. Moriescu now, who had worked his way up into 6th position, now falls back into 8th. So did not lose a lot of ground, but it's been a challenging race so far for Theo Moriescu here, as he is now back underway, back behind the 09 of Jordy Fike, who, although he is now, well, let's see, it looks like Fike coming down the pit lane.
Is this going to be a drive-through potentially? I'm just trying to have a bit of a look. No, looks like he's going to park it. Are we going to see? Ooh.
Oh, well, stop and go. It's quite possible, and I'm listening to the steward's radio. I didn't hear anything come over the system. I wonder if they spoke directly to him, but it looks like perhaps a stop and go penalty, or perhaps it was self-imposed after that coming together with Moriescu.
Could well have been. I'll tell you what. Looks like something's happened to Moriescu again. He's just lost 2 places to Greenfield and Mac. Oh, saving the groundskeepers some job there, mowing a bit of grass for them. And trying to get the car back on the track and struggling too. It's been from riches to rags, back to riches, and back to rags again for Moriescu. And the car's not looking too comfortable right now for him, Greg. I wonder if he's got some sort of suspension damage. He seems to be twitching a little bit unpredictably.
Yes, and you could see there as he came out of the S's through 8 into 9, he is dialing in a lot of very small corrections very, very often there, Tim. I think there's and you can see there as the car gets loose coming through turn 11, there definitely appears to be an issue. We'll see how much longer he can hold on here. He's got a long way to go to the checkered flag, almost 8 minutes, and I don't know if he's gonna be able to do that, and if he can, he's certainly going to be sweating quite a bit for the remainder of the race here.
He's definitely working overtime right now and earning all of his money in one go. And I'll tell you what, Morgan Burkhart, he's already taken a second out of Caleb Patry after his spin. He lost 9.5 seconds. That gap's now down to, wow, you can see just how hard he's pushing right now in that 40 machine. He's already taken a second out of Patry. He's, to be fair to Caleb Patry, just needs to collect his thoughts and bring the car home safely. Such as the margin that he's got right now over Morgan Burkhart. Doesn't need to take any risks, just needs to play it safe, and he will be guaranteed of the victory here today at Mid-Ohio.
And running off there, Tyler Campbell. More problems for the number 37 machine, although he goes off from 5th and had about 6 seconds on Kyle Vallejo. So Campbell's going to hold on to 5th. Let's take a look here at the replay as he's coming through Thunder Valley, going into turn 11, a corner that's been giving drivers a lot of problems tonight. Keeps it off of the tire wall there, and right behind him, I believe that was Vallejos that went around behind. So that would certainly account for Campbell's being able to hold on to 5th position if the driver in 6th couldn't keep the car on the course either.
One of the things that won't be helping the drivers right now is 116 degrees temperature. It's going to feel like driving on ice out there, and I think that's what's causing quite a few of the mistakes that the drivers are encountering right now, where it's like driving on ice out there. You think the high track temperature would invoke more grip because it would make the tires more sticky, more, you know, but it doesn't. It works. It works in the opposite way. Once you get over around about, just trying to do the conversions quickly here, it's around about 82 degrees Fahrenheit. It's sort of the tipping point of where you start to lose grippers. There's a cracking battle going on here side by side right now between Fike and Moriescu.
And this is where the two drivers, of course, Jordy Fike came in for that stop and go after the coming together with Moriescu, and they find themselves right next to one another once again, as Moriescu, of course, trying to fight whatever issues the car is having. But right now, the number 31 machine, after just a lap, is starting to look a little bit stronger.
Well, you saw Moriescu just blink there, just with a slight connection issue. That's what it's down to. That would have been very unnerving for Fike, but do you know what? Jordy Fike, I take my hat off to you for keeping your toe in it and hanging it right around the outside of 13. Wow, this could go either way between these two, because Moriescu, despite carrying what we believe is a bit of damage, certainly to the front right. Oh, wow.
And Fike there with a little bobble gets into the grass there at the apex of the keyhole, and he's going to lose the spot now to Moriescu. Let's see if he can find a way back by. Moriescu now keeping a couple car widths to the inside, to driver's right, and Fike for the moment does not want to pull the trigger. He's going to follow Moriescu now over Madness and into the S's.
I tell you what, Morgan Burkhart, he's taken another second out of Caleb Patry, and in doing so, he's just set the fastest lap of the race last time around, Greg, 1:22.19. He's really pushing it and giving it absolutely everything, because he knows if Patry makes just one mistake, he needs to be there to capitalize on it, and he's trying his damnedest right now to put himself in that position. But Patry taking it easy. It looks like he's just out for a bit of a Sunday drive.
There you go, and you can see there at the bottom of the screen as Burkhart pulling off 1/4 of a second, almost 4/10 of a second, 8/10 of a second, lap after lap, as he closes the gap back to Caleb Patry, but still with almost a 7.5 second advantage over Caleb Patry with under 4 minutes remaining. It will be, I think, a very difficult task for Burkhart to get up there, and and you can see, much as we talked about earlier, Burkhart really starting to throw the car around. We had seen the same behavior from Caleb Patry just before Morgan Burkhart spun the car coming out of turn number 1, but as Patry has dialed things back a little bit, the car is starting to look a little bit more stable, and perhaps he set that car up a little bit more for the long run. You can see there as he's got about a 45 car length advantage now over the number 40 of Burkhart.
Burkhart's taken another half a second out of Patry. I mean, time's going to run out, but I take my hat off to him. He's really pushing it and giving it his all right now. I don't think it seems like he's pushing harder than when he was in the lead. As something's happened between Fike and Moriescu again. Those two have been had a hammer and tongue, haven't they?
Yes, they
pretty
have.
much the whole race long, and I think they might have had a bit of a coming together somewhere. As Fike going very slowly there. It looks like he's got
might be serving himself another drive-through penalty. We'll take a look here and see exactly what happened as Fike is following Moriescu up into the keyhole, and it looks like Moriescu might have gone around on his own, but there was another car there. It looks like Wayne Buttermore might have been involved with this as well. He was off track as Moriescu came by. I was wondering, Dennis, is it possible to maybe go through and look at that sequence again and key on Buttermore?
I think what's happened is that Moriescu has spun, and then due to the nature of the circuit where you've got that blind entry, and as soon as you come offline, there's nowhere to go, and there you go. Just try to take evasive action, and well, where Buttermore managed to make it past Moriescu, Fike
did not.
No, he was unsighted and made contact with Moriescu. Moriescu's got a broken rear right suspension, the wheel pointing at 90 degrees towards the car. Now you can have a bit of camber on these cars, but certainly nowhere near that. And, well, I think that could be the racing done and dusted for Fike and Moriescu.
Yes, unfortunately, that is how it appears to be, and it looks like the Fike has the car in the pit lane, so I think maybe a little bit more, and it looks like he's now checked out of the session, so maybe a little bit more than just a self-imposed stop and go. Here as we're following Caleb Patry, as we now have about a minute remaining here. And Tim, since we have just quickly a minute here, let me talk real quick about our sponsor for tonight's first race of the evening, Alliance Autosport, based in Columbus, Ohio, the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, their home track, and they found success both at the club and professional levels, garnering multiple championships, including 8 SCCA National Championships, 3 SCCA Pro Racing Championships, as well as a USF 2000 National Class Championship. And Alliance and their team members are dedicated, hardworking, and they do know what it takes to win. Alliance is SCCA Enterprises Great Lakes Division Customer Service Representative for FE2 and Spec Racer Ford 3, and their services include arrive and drive packages for Spec Racer Ford Gen 3, FE2, as well as Trans Am 2. They offer customer car prep, trackside support, transportation, storage, part sales, data analysis, hospitality, as well as driver coaching and development. To join Alliance Autosport on the winning track, check them out at allianceautosport.com. As we now have hit that magic 20-minute mark, and things are winding down here on the very last lap. Caleb Patry, our leader, not only has he gotten the one to go, the white flag, he's only got a few more corners remaining as he finds his way now into Thunder Valley. He's got just turn 11 here and the carousel to go. And as he comes into that very difficult late braking off camber carousel and comes through the final corner, turn 13, onto the front straight, Caleb Patry dropping a wheel on exit, but he manages to hold on. He is going to be your winner. Morgan Burkhart, driver of the number 40 machine, he crosses a stripe. He will finish in second tonight. And it looks like Beans Forster. We haven't really tracked Beans there in the blue and yellow number 231, but he now comes across the line. He will take the last step on the podium. John Vogel finishing in fourth, working his way back up to, I think furthest back was he sixth. Then Tyler Campbell working all the way up after a spin and 2 incidents. Tyler Campbell will come home in fifth. Kyle Vallejo's sixth. Deacon Greenfield makes up 2 positions this race. He will finish 7th. Greg Mack picks up 6 positions, started in 14th position. He will finish in 8th. Joaquin Effinger will come home in 9th. And Theo Moriescu will round out the top 10. All right, so let's take a look here, Tim. Great finish here and a great run by Caleb Patry. Ran close to a flawless race and just had to manage the equipment for the last 3 quarters, for like the last 15 minutes of the race. No drama from him, and he comes home with the checkered flag.
It'll look easy when we look back through the history books for Caleb Patry, but it certainly wasn't in the first half of the race. And the way Morgan Burkhart was catching, he did have an off track on the penultimate lap, which is what caused him just to drop back. And he knew at that point that it was done and dusted. So hence the slightly extending gap towards the end of the race. But I'm gutted for the Moriescu fan club in the chat.
Yes.
Marzarelli, we've had Alex Thompson and Valentex No Studios all cheering him on, but unfortunately it just wasn't meant to be for him. No matter how hard he tried, if he didn't have any bad luck, he wouldn't have had any luck at all today.
No, it was definitely a very difficult run tonight for the driver of the number 31 car. All right, Tim. So we have our top two finishers. They are sitting now in the green room. Why don't we bring in Morgan Burkhart, driver of the number 40 All Sports Racing Formula 4, our second place finisher tonight at Mid Ohio.
Morgan, welcome along to the commentary booth. Well, you were one of the drivers who unfortunately caught out by the high curbing at turn 1. As soon as you sort of clipped it, did you know it was potentially going to end in disaster for you?
Oh yeah, even like just as I turned in, I knew I was not gonna come out pointing in a straight line. So I tried to save it a couple times, and then I ended up clipping the curb with my left rear, and it unsettled the car, and it just kept doing a wiggle, and then eventually wiggled itself into a spin. And yeah, it's the annoying thing about the curb at turn 1 is because it looks so inviting, and in pretty much every other car I've driven here, it works, but not this one.
Most certainly not. And we have a phrase in the UK about throwing the baby out with the bathwater to mean that you gave everything you absolute all tried. I mean, you were really going for it in those closing stages, setting the fastest lap of the race as well to boot. Was it just a case of you were just trying so hard that the chance that Caleb Patry made one mistake, you could capitalise on it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, at that point, I had a big enough gap back to Beans in third that I could afford to make kind of another mistake. So I kind of drove a little bit more on the risky side, whereas I knew he was kind of just going to back off and manage the gap. So just see if I can close the gap, maybe get into his head by, having him see the numbers going down. So, but he has, pretty good mental fortitude, so it didn't work.
I was unlucky, but I mean, congratulations in some ways, commiserations in some other ways for the second place here today at Mid Ohio. That's Morgan Burkhart.
Thank you.
All right, let's now bring in our winner tonight in Formula 4, Caleb Patry, driver of the number 198 machine.
Caleb, congratulations on the win. Do you feel like it was maybe gifted to you from Morgan's error?
I mean, partly I think he was just a little bit faster than me, and I was kind of able to stay there in the draft somewhat, but I could tell I was faster in some spots, he was faster in some spots, so we were both pretty close. But yeah, it certainly made my job a lot easier when he made that mistake, and just kind of afterwards, car seemed a little loose, so I was just kind of trying to stay in control and just manage the gap.
I mean, Mid Ohio, it's a tight, twisty, technical circuit combined with these F4 cars like to have lift-off oversteer, and we had incredibly high track temperatures, over 110 degrees. Just put us inside the car. Just what was it like trying to drive the car out there?
Well, for the first, I don't know, maybe half that race following Morgan, it seemed a little pushy, probably because of the aero wash, but I was able to stay there. And then once I was in clear air, the thing was just really, really loose, especially on corner exit. So I was really having to kind of feather the throttle. But after a few laps of kind of calming down, I think the car just kind of came in and just kind of settled down, and I was able to turn some decent ones. But for sure, it did feel pretty loose, and I was really kind of having to.
That's completely understandable. Well, Caleb, congratulations on taking the victory here today at Mid Ohio, and well, we'll look forward to seeing you soon on track.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Caleb Patry, our winner in race number 1 tonight. And next up is going to be Spec Miata, the Mazda MX-5s. But before we get to them, we're going to take a quick little break and thank all of our sponsors. And also remind you, if you like what you see here tonight, you like the great quality racing in the Ray Esports Racing League, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and subscribe to Apex Racing TV and click on that notification bell. We've got great virtual motorsports action happening around the world, seemingly 24/7. And if you do all that, you won't miss a beat. You won't miss a beat. So let's take that quick break. We'll be back from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in just a few moments with race number 2 on the Ray Esports Racing League.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
All right, and we are back here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for the Ray Esports Racing League, presented by Alliance Autosport, Grassroots Motorsports Magazine, and Spec Racer Sports. I'm Greg Ginsburg along with Tim Cox, and we are getting ready for race number 2, Tim, where we've got the Spec Miatas, the MX-5s, out on track right now for their 15-minute open qualifying session. And if I didn't know any better, I'd say they were racing.
I think so. It's qualifying in name, but trying to get the slipstream all the way down the back straight section. Although it's coming incredibly quickly in the lap, similar to Interlagos, where the back straight comes after turn 2 there as well. But
yeah,
I think that's where the sort of similarity. Well, the similarities are quite simple. Similar. You've got lots of corners that with elevation changes in them. Except Interlagos is a lot wider than Mid-Ohio.
Yeah, it certainly is. There isn't a lot of ground here, and when you consider when some of these corners drop off camber or drop downhill, there's not a lot of room for mistakes if you've got another vehicle beside you. I think we saw that in the Formula 4 race just a little while ago. And again, congratulations to Caleb Patry taking the win in that Formula 4 race with Morgan Burkhart and Beans Forster, your podium finishers. So as you can see here, as we are now a little bit over halfway through our second qualifying session, well, I was just going to say that Jamison Huffman was your provisional pole sitter, but his teammate Morgan Burkhart has just taken that mantle. Now with a sparkling difference of showing it as 1/10 of a second, and it's actually it's actually just about 1/10, 136.225 to a 136.33, somewhere along those lines. So just about a tenth. So let's do this, Tim. Let's quickly, while qualifying is going on here, and as we see, I think Greg Mack and I believe that was also Wayne Buttermore went off over at the keyhole. Let's take a quick look in the championship, and then we'll talk about the MX-5s. Spec Racer Ford not racing with us here tonight. They'll join us next week, next Tuesday night, when we head to Birmingham, Alabama, and the Barber to Barber Motorsports Park. But it was a very exciting race at Road Atlanta just a week ago, and much like we saw the photo finish at Watkins Glen, we had another one here, but this time instead of being for the win, it was for 4th place, as we had coming down, and I kind of alluded to this early on, Tim, we had Josh Justice coming down the very steep turn 12, the final corner. He had Charles Vaccaro, Nagase Yoshikawa, and Jordy Fike very closely in tow, and just past the apex, Charles Vaccaro, he got this slight little love tap from Yoshikawa, and as he battled to keep the car on track with about an 80 degrees of slip angle, the car was practically sideways, and threw in a lot of opposite lock there, managed to keep it out of the grass, off the wall, and somehow managed to cross the finish line just 1/1000th of a second back from Justice. He finished in 4th, and then 700ths of a second ahead of Yoshikawa. And Jordy Fike, who I think had the best seat in the house, all he could do is sit back and watch everything happen ahead of him. He was at 95,000ths of a second back from Yoshikawa, back in 7th. But absolutely amazing to watch how Vaccaro was able to keep that car off the wall and cross the line practically sideways. And so we talked about that. That was the finish for 4th, but Morgan Burkhart took the win. John Vogel finished in 2nd, and Antonio Rice. And we talked about this, Tim, that Rice, it didn't look like, he qualified very well, but he just did not race very well. And it was interesting because just this past weekend, the Weekend Warriors another league that he races in, I believe, was at Virginia International Raceway, and he took the class win. So he certainly raced very well this weekend, but unfortunately could not really compete there with John Vogel or Morgan Burkhart. And so if we take a look at the points now, Morgan Burkhart with just a 2-point advantage over Josh Justice. And then sitting in third right now, only a point back from there, is Charles Vaccaro. Both of those drivers, based on their finishes at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, moved up 4 spots respectively in the championship. Wanchi Lin, who did not race last week, he falls back into 4th in the championship, tied with Jordy Fike, and then Josh Wilson now sitting back in 6th, only 1 point back, or probably only 4 points back from Lynn and Fike, but very, very tight, very close in Spec Racer Ford. And if we take a look now over at the MX5 battle here in the championship, of course, the last time we saw them was at Watkins Glen, and we had that great finish, that 3-wide finish for 4th position, but Morgan Burkhart and Caleb Patry coming in 1st and 2nd, about 0.4 of a second separating them. Josh Soto only 11 thousandths of a second back from Patry in 3rd. And if we take a look at the championship for our Mazda Miatas, for the Spec Miatas, right now, Morgan Burkhart, he is your leader. He's got a 2-point advantage over Jordy Fike. Beans Forster sitting 3 points back from there. And then we've got a tie for 4th between Caleb Patry and Wanchi Lin. And although Patry is out here tonight, once again, we do not have Wanchi Lin here racing with us this evening, so he's certainly going to be hurt by that. But the driver who could certainly benefit from Wanchi Lin not being here, Jamison Huffman, who is currently tied with Deacon Greenfield for 6th position, but he fell back 5 positions by not racing at Watkins Glen 2 weeks ago. And so we might see him, as he is now sitting provisionally on the outside of the front row, Tim. Yeah, we might see him move back up in the championship.
I think you've summarised really the Ray Esports leagues nicely, really, in your sort of opening piece there, Greg. It's drama, excitement, and unpredictability right from the green through to the checkered. You never know quite what's going to happen. It's, you know, quote Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get next, and that is so true about the Ray Esports Racing League.
That is absolutely true, and you never know. You never know who you're going to be competing with from week for week. But all of these drivers, the one thing that we see, and we do see some contact from time to time, but for the most part, these drivers, they are all very conscientious gentlemen and gentlewomen drivers when we do have them with us. And the racing is always great, but it is always a surprise, I think, when we see the checkered flag come out, exactly how these races will play out. It's always a great mystery for us here, as we have now seen the checkered flag. Theo Moriescu just now taking the checker. He is going to start 13th here this evening. But once again this evening, not to ruin the drama, it looks like Morgan Burkhart, driver of the number 40 All Sports machine, he is for the second time tonight going to be your pole sitter, as we watch Charles Vaccaro now come across the line, try to move up from 6th position, and he is not going to do that. His qualifying session is now done, and notice that we now have Charles Vaccaro and Murphy Nichols here with us. It's as if, Tim, that they went out in practice in the previous race and thought, maybe we should devote our time to the MX-5s.
It definitely seems that way. And Morgan Burkhart, you mentioned taking pole over Jamison Huffman by 3/4 of a tenth. I'm just going to let that one marinate for a second. 3/4 of a tenth. I mean, frighteningly competitive between the pair of them. I mean, that's going to be a real battle between them. But don't forget, Caleb Patry starting in the row behind them. Don't count him out, because you can bet your bottom dollar he's going to be looking to make it 2 wins from 2 today from Mid-Ohio.
That's right. That is right. All right. So we've got a few drivers still out on course. It looks like Ray Blethyn, who is joining us, I think, for the very first time here in the Ray Esports Racing League. We saw his brother, his twin brother, Steven, just last week at Michelin Raceway, Road Atlanta. But Ray, who has been racing very consistently and doing very well in another SCCA affiliated league, is joining us here now. Ray, much like his brother, a longtime club racer, and qualified, I believe, either 3rd or 4th at the national championship runoffs in Touring 4, and noted IT racer in Audi Coupes up in New England. Good to see him come out with us tonight. So, Tim, looks like we've got the starting grid ready to go. Why don't you run them on down, and we'll get things underway for race number 2.
Very certainly. Morgan Burkhart on pole, with Jamison Huffman joining him on the front row. Race 1 winner in the F4s, Caleb Patry. He starts on the 2nd row and 3rd. Kevin Langer is joining him for company on the 2nd row. Murphy Nichols and Charlie Vaccaro, well, didn't quite make it to the F4s, but putting in lots of practice and getting themselves both up into the 3rd row of the grid. Mitchell Peak, he's got Beans Forster for company on the 4th row with Greg Mack and Sean Hayes. They're going to run out your top 10 and 5th row of the grid. Raymond Blethyn, as you mentioned, new to the championship, a good solid qualifying from him in 11th. Carl Vallejos starts alongside him in the 6th row of the grid. Theo Morescu, hopefully for a bit of redemption, I think, after the previous round. He starts alongside Geordie Fike. Well, plenty of contact and drama in race 1 between them in the F4s. We're going to see again in the Spec Miatas. Well, not long at all to find out. Deacon Greenfield, he starts in 15th with Wayne Buttermore alongside him. Ran out your 17-car grid. It's Joaquin Effinger.
All right, thanks so much, Tim. And as we're getting ready to get underway with our very short pace lap here, let's quickly talk about our sponsor for tonight's second race, and that is Grassroots Motorsports Magazine. Built for the true sports car enthusiast, GRM has one mission: to be your personal guide to the sports car world. Whether it's online at grassrootsmotorsports.com, in print, or in person, the racers and builders, the car nerds at Grassroots Motorsports, take you behind the scenes and show you how to make your car better. Along the way, they'll give you a taste of everything else this hobby has to offer, from 1,000 horsepower track monsters to cool street cars built in driveways. They also maintain a collection of staff-built project cars, because hands-on technical articles aren't typed behind the desk, they're scribbled down in the garage. To not only read but become part of the story, head on over to grassrootsmotorsports.com. And so we've got the pace car now on pit lane. We've got Burkhart and Huffman jockeying for position. Green flag is now in the air, poking all the way down to the inside. Was the blue number 231 of Beans Forster. He's going to have to get in line, but Burkhart's still running that Ukrainian flag liveried machine. He's going to jump to an early lead. Right behind him, we still have Patry and Huffman side by side, right behind them, Murphy Nichols and Kevin Langer jockeying for position. Looks like the 5 of Nichols is going to take a real wide set into the carousel, try to straighten, or probably into the keyhole. Oh, and huge wreck. That is Greg Mack in the 2 machine. Looks like Sean Hayes in the number 94 machine, trying to get things underway. And I'll tell you, Tim, if Greg Mack didn't have poor luck on the first couple of laps of a race, he wouldn't have any luck at all. I mean, this, unfortunately for him, he just always seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and now he and Sean are going to have to work their way up from the back of the pack, as it is Burkhart and Patry, Huffman, and still battling for position. Right behind them are Langer and Nichols, but it looks like Nichols getting a little loose there, coming out of the S's and setting up for turn 9. He's going to not only concede position to Kevin Langer, but Mitchell Peak in the white and red Team Esports Racer machine manages to sneak by as well.
Something's happened to Raymond Blethyn. He did get a bit compacted in the midfield, and saw someone being squeezed off. I think it may well have been him. So let's take a little look at the 51. There he is. So it's going right around the outside, which is ambitious and more. Wow.
Oh!
Wow.
Yeah. Yep, and you can see there lots of damage to the left front of the 51 machine. I think that was Murphy Nichols. As Nichols was trying to move over driver's left, the 51 machine was there. And we now see Ray Blethen in the pit lane trying to get some repairs done and get back out on track as we jump back over to the action now as we are working lap number 2. And a nice little move there as we see Beans Forster battling it out right now with Kyle Vallejos as they make the run down to turn 4. Forster to driver's right, Vallejos to driver's left. Right behind them is the 09 of Jordy Fike. And Fike has his run down to turn 4 thwarted by Kyle Vallejos, who came right across his nose. And Tim, you saw there where Fike really had to check up much earlier than he expected.
Wow, the way he shut the door in his face, that was more daring than wearing white pants to a cookout, really, wasn't it?
Yes.
Whoa, there's someone off in the background there. There you go. That's, Theo Moriescu. Someone get that man a beer, because it's just been such a tale of woes for him today at Mid-Ohio.
Yeah, indeed. And just before that, we saw Deacon Greenfield put his car around. He has now gotten back underway as well, but loses a couple positions, moved Greenfield back to 12th, although he started 15th, so still 3 net to the good, and Moriescu now falls back to 14th.
So I'm intrigued by that. This midfield battle is absolutely fascinating right now, and to boot, Murphy Nichols has just set the fastest lap of the race. I mean, we are only on lap 3, so those times are going to tumble, but considering we're battling once again with incredibly high track temperatures, 120 degrees out there, even higher than what we experienced in the Spec F4 races we saw just earlier in the show. These guys are really pushing it hard, and well, I get the feeling it could end in tears for one of 2 of them, but jubilation from others, as you could see a change for the leader. It's Caleb Patrick versus Morgan Burkhart, round 2.
Yep, here we go. The only difference now is the lack of wings, and they're both sliding around all over the place. And also, they don't have that huge breakaway that they dealt with, or that they had in the F4 race. As we now have going off track, I believe that was Kyle Vallejos, and he is now headed to the pits. I was just going to mention that Ray Blethen is now back out on track in the number 51 machine. Unfortunately, a full lap down. As he just now crosses the stripe to complete his second lap.
I'll tell you what, I'm a little bit surprised the way that Jamison Huffman's just dropped off a little bit off the back of Burkhart and Patrick. At the moment, it feels like he's just clinging on for dear life to the 3 of them. When I say that, he's just gone and set the fastest lap of the race to boot. So he's just started. You see where when we spoke to Caleb Patrick earlier, he was saying in the earlier race between himself and Morgan Burkhart, there was quicker in different parts of the circuit. Definitely seems like that's the case right now for Jamison Huffman. He's been quicker out of 13 and through 1 and to the keyhole. And then once it's the exit of the keyhole, that's where he seems to be a little bit slower, but then just make it up in the slipstream on the run down to 4.
Yeah, and you can see there as he came out of the keyhole, lost about a car length perhaps, but in the end here, as they come down, especially under braking in the 4, he makes up about 3/4 of that, gets to within maybe 3/4 of a car length, and now as they come up over Madness, he is now right back behind the 198 machine. It looks like the 198 of Patry perhaps has a little bit more pace coming out of 4 going up into Madness, up into turn 5, and Burkhart may be backing them up just a little bit there.
It just seems to me like he's backing him up a little bit. Bit of a tactical one there, just to kill off any momentum, just by slowing it up when you come to the apex, Greg. It's an age-old tactic, but it works time and time again, especially when there's only one single line through the back end of the circuit. But this is Patrick's chance, really. It's going to be just sure he gets a good exit entry and exit through 1, stay close through the keyhole, and then launch an attack into the crucial turn 4. Don't discredit Huffman, because inch by inch he has been closing that gap up. He's about a 10th closer than what he was this time last lap. Again, if he can get a good exit out of the keyhole, then expect to see him trying to make some advances and the run down to 4. And I tell you what, there's half a second covering our top 3 right now.
Yeah, and you can see there, Tim, that he stayed right on the rear bumper of the 198 of Patry coming out of the keyhole. Much better exit than he had the previous lap. But I'll tell you that, and we'll see what happens here as Patry takes a look to the inside on Burkhart, and Huffman with really nowhere to go. But I think the pack right behind, as once again, I think Burkhart maybe a little bit off of the pace of the second and third place cars coming through turn 5. We've got Mitchell Peak and Kevin Langer, Peak in particular, working his way as a bridge up to our top 3 drivers.
Mitchell Peak's a man with momentum right now, Greg. He's already got 3 places, starting 7th, up into 4th in these early stages. And the more that these top 3 keep battling and slowing each other up, it's going to change from a 3-way battle lead into a 4-way. And as you say, Kevin Langer and Murphy Nichols, they're not far behind either. And don't discredit even Charlie Vaccaro, because again, if they all start tripping up over one another, he's going to be brought into it. We could end up potentially with a 7-way battle for the lead, and we're not even halfway through the race yet.
Yep, indeed, a 20-minute race, and not quite there yet now as Murphy Nichols moves to the inside of Kevin Langer. This battle has been going on seemingly since the drop of the green flag, but Murphy Nichols with a strong move down the inside of the keyhole. Langer opens up the door for him, and Nichols seemingly uncontested moves through into 5th position, as we now have Caleb Patry and Morgan Burkhart, maybe with a little bit of a love tap there, coming down in the 4, and Patry to driver's right, Burkhart taking the long way around, but he could be set up for madness here, and Patry now is moving down to driver's right, going into the S's, and another more contact between the 40 and the 198 machine. Huffman now running up onto the back of him, and Huffman now to push the issue with the number 40 of Burkhart, as they both have to compromise their speed coming through turn 9. And Mitchell Peak, he is now at least in the battle for second, as Caleb Patry has managed to open up a 2.5 car advantage now over our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place runners.
Patry knew he had to do something because they were slowing each other up, as we mentioned. More cars being brought into it. Mitchell Peak in that. Nichols and Langer, they're now into this fight. And being in the middle of a 3-way battle, it's never good, because you need to make your move on the car in front of you, but you need to have one eye on what's going on behind you as well. And Patry said, no, I'm getting out of this. I'm going for the move. Went for broke, up the inside, took control of the race. And then just ensued short, looking half in his mirrors at just the battle going on behind him. But watch out for Mitchell Peak. He is in an incredibly strong position right now, and you wouldn't write him off with a chance of taking one step onto the podium.
No, matter of fact, the only driver faster than Mitchell Peak that last time by was our current leader, Caleb Patry. And as we watch here, as they make the run down there towards turn 4 once again, Peak takes a look to the inside on Huffman, as he's about a car length and maybe a quarter off the back of the number 89 machine. Decides to stay in line, but you can see here as Huffman really having to alter his line, getting a little defensive. I think he might be a little worried about the 56 car sitting behind him. And one of the challenges, and I kind of look at this like that section, those S's, it's somewhat like the carousel at Summit Point. If you turn in maybe a little bit early in the leading corners of the carousel at Summit Point, much like here in the S's, it is incredibly difficult to get back online and carry speed through the rest. It's you're always just a couple of steps behind the car, and I think we saw that with Huffman as well, perhaps more so than just trying to defend on the 56.
I'd say, well, the more that Peak makes advances on Huffman right now. It's opening up the gap between Huffman and our top two. It's the last thing he wants as he's watching the two cars in front of him, Caleb Patry and Morgan Burkhart, start to disappear into the distance as well. Burkhart going for a bit of an ambitious move on the inside there on the exit of the corner. I've seen a lot of things, I'm sure, like yourself, Greg, but never quite that one. Is there a bit of bump drafting going on as well?
Yeah, I mean, he was able to keep both of the right wheels on the curbing there on the last portion of the corner, which is something very, very rare to see, the way he was able to get that car to rotate around when that is a section of the track where the front end of the car typically wants to push off drivers left, and you get a lot of understeer, and he got just the opposite. I think the last driver I've ever seen drive the keyhole like that, Tim, was Peter Cunningham driving a front-wheel drive Acura TSX. You guys know it as the Honda Accord there on that side of the pond, and where he could literally make the car dance around the front wheels of the car. But I've never seen it with a rear-wheel drive car, even an MX-5, which is so well balanced.
Incredibly well balanced, aren't they? These great little two-seater sports cars. I mean, great balance, poise within them, incredibly great fun to drive, even in the standard road form, let alone the race form. As I tell you, just looking at it, Peak has gone from being the aggressor now to having to defend, because Nichols is onto the attack. Greg, I'm off to go find some dice because I'm going to roll it, and I think that's probably the easiest way to determine who's going to come with a victory out of our top six, because this could go absolutely any way.
Anyway, yeah, and now that we have Patry and Burkhart once again in competition for the lead, I think that may give a second wind to a Patry and a Huffman and a Nichols, and allow them to get back up to our leaders after they had fallen back a couple of car lengths, as Morgan Burkhart, now coming over the top of Madness, retakes the lead from the 198 of Patry. And indeed, Huffman and Fike and Nichols and Langer now all moving up closer, ever closer to our two leaders.
I tell you, we've got Jason Boss in the chat, who's a Mitchell Pig fan, as clipping the wall there. I'm not sure. Was that Murphy Nichols there? I think maybe. Who's looking a little bit out of shape coming out of the corner, but it hasn't killed off any of his momentum. And for the first time, Kevin Lang just started to drop off this group a little bit. But that's only for now. And we've got just over 5 minutes left, and I don't think this is enough. Mind you, I'm sure if these guys kept racing till midnight, they'd still be going at it hammer and tongue like this, wouldn't they?
I'm confident that is the case. Yes. And Patry with a little bit wider entry to the keyhole, but now you see where as Burkhart got that move done coming just a lap ago. Now perhaps a little more conservative going into the keyhole, trying to get and focus on exit speed more than anything else. As Jordy Fike now moves to the inside on Jamison Huffman as they go down into turn 4 with China Beach off to their left, and moving not around Huffman, but opening the door once again to the 5 machine of Nichols as they come down the hill. So pardon me, Fike just not quite close enough to affect the change, and frankly, they're going into turn 4, as I think we've seen most of the evening now, having your car drivers left going into turn 4, which switches you over to drivers left, and having that inside position going into Madness is definitely the place to be.
It most certainly is. As we look down from the blimp right now, this brilliant overhead shot, you can just see how close our top 5 are right now. And I think Kevin Langer, I think we can put a mark through his name right now of being out of the battle for this lead. But as we've seen time and time again across the 16.5 minutes that we have been racing, all it takes is these guys to start battling through the back end of the circuit, tripping up over one another. Langer will be brought right back into the mix once again. I think what's happening right now is it's just stagnating a little bit. It's the calm before the storm going on right now, Greg, because what they're doing is they're waiting, especially Caleb Patry, for the final lap to make it move. What do I know?
Well,
there you go.
Up
the inside. Scrap that. Having a... He can't quite get it. I tell you what, Morgan Burkhart holding on for dear life right round the outside and keeping hold of the lead right now. But, well, those two trips over one another. Jamison Huffman having a bit of a look and trying to size up Caleb Patry right now.
Yeah, and realizing there just isn't anywhere to go, just as Fike is sizing up the 89 machine. And unfortunately, that portion of the course, if you have the two lead cars going too wide through there really isn't anywhere else to go except through the grass and likely into a tire wall here, as we watch our two leaders drop down into the carousel once again. And I love that turn complex right there, Tim, where the car seemingly just drops in, drops down. If you turn in just millimeters too late, the car pushes off to the outside and you're off in the grass. Drivers left here, but we now have less than 2 minutes remaining. Likely this lap and one more to go here from Mid-Ohio, as Morgan Burkhart has 2 more laps that he needs to hold off the 198 car, and we'll see what, if anything, Caleb Patry has in his bag of tricks. Everything that he's tried the last couple of laps has not worked. As Burkhart now moves to the inside, he's going to force Patry to driver's left, and Tim, I don't know if that is the most prudent thing to do, as Patry drives right around Burkhart on the outside, and if he can keep that car on the track, he will take over the lead, and he does as they head now down into the S's with just a lap and a half remaining.
I think Burkhart just allowed him through there, as if say, go on, you take control of the race for now, because I think what Morgan Burkhart's going to do is he's going to stay right on the tail of Patry, use the slipstream out of the keyhole, and, well, yeah, again, I think I'm just being disproved. I'm going to stop trying to come up with theories. There's a bit of a tap there. That's opened the door to Jamison Huffman, and, well, they're like the animals coming out of Noah's Ark here. They're 2 by 2.
And look at Nichols pushing the car underneath Jordy Fike, as we saw. And Fike and Nichols go around. They are off in the gravel trap on the outside of 13. That's going to move now Kevin Langer up in the 4th, as things now just open up for our top 2 drivers, Caleb Patry and Morgan Burkhart. They've got Jamison Huffman in tow as the white flag is in the air. We're on the very last lap here from Mid-Ohio, and they now head into the keyhole. And, well, Tim, maybe you were right, and it may not have worked out exactly the way we thought it would, but Morgan Burkhart now is in the catbird seat coming down into turn 4 for the final time.
Here we go. I think he's going to... Well, if Patry's clever here... Oh, wow! How did they not make bigger contact and end in tears? But Burkhart, clever there, went to the outside because he knows that, then gives him the inside line to the next corner. And Jamison Huffman trying to follow him through, but I don't think he's going to be close enough there, Greg.
No, he is not. And so Caleb Patry, with that little tap between Burkhart and Patry having to do a lot of work there to recover, lost a lot of momentum going into turn 4, pretty much opened the door for Morgan Burkhart as they come over turn 9, and they have just 4 more turns remaining. I hope I got that right. John Grabowski will correct me if I'm wrong here at the end of the evening, because he knows counting is my big problem here. As they now come down into the carousel for the very last time, Huffman trying to push the car underneath Patry, but Patry should have position going into the final corner. And as they come onto the front straight, Morgan Burkhart is going to take the win. Caleb Patry will finish 2nd. Jamison Huffman brings his car home in 3rd. And look at this, Beans Forster on the last lap gets around Kevin Langer. The 231 will finish 4th. Langer will finish in 5th. Jordy Fike recovers to 6th. Charles Vaccaro 7th. Murphy Nichols finishes in 8th. Deacon Greenfield 9th. Sean Hayes, who had that early off on lap number 1, he works his way all the way back up to 10th. So, Tim, another exciting finish. And didn't we start this race off, or or talk during qualifying how we could never predict how these things were going to end?
We did indeed. I think there's 4 things that are predictable in life: death, taxes, the swimming pool on Titanic is still full of water, and the 4th one being that in the Esports Racing League, you never know who's going to win and what way it's going to go. I mean, what a thought! Well, I would say final few laps, but those guys were at it the whole race long, trading places left, right, and centre, and I'm absolutely gutted in the end that we ended up with a 3-way battle, because I think that for us as neutrals, that would have been even more interesting, more spicy, and more drama filled than it already was.
I mean, I can only imagine if we had Nichols and if we had Jordy Fike in there for that last lap battle. As it is, I think tonight we saw Caleb Patry and Morgan Burkhart get the elbows out a little bit more than we have before. A little more rough, a little more tumble here in the MX-5s than we've seen from these drivers in quite some time. And tell you what, we've got now all 3 of our podium finishers, Tim, here in the green room. Let me get word as we're at 10:24 in the evening. Dennis, do we have time for all 3, or can we only bring in 2 of them? All right, well, let's do this. I'm getting word from Dennis that we have time for 2. So let's go ahead. Let's bring in Caleb Patry, finishing 2nd tonight in the Spec Miatas.
Caleb, wow, what a final few laps. When you took control on the penultimate lap, did you think that maybe you would have enough just to hold off Morgan for that final lap?
I mean, hopefully. I was kind of hoping I would pass him and then they would race him and I'd get a gap, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So, but it was kind of a good final lap there. I tried my best to kind of hold him off and get runs, but unfortunately that just didn't happen.
We're already a bit short of time here, so one final quick question. Are you happy with the 2nd, or do you think it was a missed opportunity?
I mean, I think it was like any of our race, anybody's race in the top 5. So I think I could have had it, but it just unfortunately wrong place, wrong time. So I'm happy with the 2nd.
Definitely. Even so, it looked like absolutely great fun out there. Congratulations on the 2nd. That's Caleb Patry.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Congrats, Caleb, on your 2nd place finish. And let's now bring in Morgan Burkhart, our winner tonight in Spec Miata.
Morgan, congratulations on the victory. Just how hard fought was that victory? It's got to be one of your hardest ones ever.
Yeah, that was up there. That was a lot of fun. It's kind of because Mid Ohio is just such a difficult track to pass at, so you kind of have to take your chances when you can get them, and it's a big strategy game with who's in 1st, who's in 2nd, and when you have to be in the lead. So there's this whole balance going on the whole time.
And talking that strategy game, tried to allude to it during commentary. Did you almost deliberately let Caleb Patry pass you on the penultimate lap, knowing then if you got a decent run out of the keyhole, he wouldn't be able to defend coming into turn 4, and you could take the lead?
Well, I'm not going to confirm nor deny that, but I will say that the draft, if the passer gets a good run out of the keyhole, is very strong down the straight to China Beach.
Definitely indeed. Well, Morgan, congratulations on what was an absolutely epic race for us in the commentary room and everyone at home. That's Morgan Burkhart with a victory here today at Mid Ohio.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Congratulations to Morgan Burkhart and all of our podium finishers here tonight at Mid-Ohio in the Ray Esports Racing League. So, Tim, another exciting evening. And as we get ready to wrap things up, of course, I want to thank our great sponsors of the Ray Esports Racing League's Season 6, Alliance Autosport, Grassroots Motorsports Magazine, and Spec Racer Sports. And if you liked what you saw tonight, if you liked the action, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and subscribe to Apex Racing TV and click on that notification bell so you can find out about all the great virtual motorsports action we have lined up for you. And so, Tim, next week, next Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, another very tight, very twisty course, very known for the difficulty in passing. It is going to be Birmingham, Alabama's Barber Motorsports Park, where we've got our MX-5 Spec Miata racers leading things off, and then we will wrap things up with the Spec Racer Fords. But it should be another cracking good time.
It will be indeed, and I can't wait for it. This race is yet again, I'm sure it's going to be an absolute cracker, and although it's difficult to overtake around Barber Motorsport Park, these guys will find a way, and it is well worth me staying up into the small hours because week after week we get great racing.
Indeed we do, Tim. And so for Tim Cox, for Dennis Branch, I'm Greg Ginsburg. We'll see you next Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time from Barber Motorsports Park. Have a great week, everybody.